Fair.
But no, man, I think we move on to what we wanted to get at tonight as well, and talking about what the hell's going on with Cayuga Lake, because I think it's getting a lot of buzz, obviously, with the state records this year and past couple years for both smallmouth and largemouth, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows right now.
Yeah, so this is a lake that's special to me. We had a cottage there when I was a kid. I grew up there. I got married on the lake, and I fish the lake every minute I get, basically. And I think it's well publicized. 5 years ago, it wasn't. It was great. I had it kind of to myself, but it is. I've been everywhere, man. I've been to Florida. I haven't been to Texas actually fishing, but Tennessee River, all the big ones, Gunnersville, Kentucky Lake, back in the heyday, all of it. Cayuga Lake, in my opinion, is the best lake largemouth fishery there is in the entire country. I would say there's usually not 10 and 12 pounders, but that got proven wrong this year that there is 12 pounders in it. That's the only thing anybody could knock it versus a Lake Fork or something is the lack of giants because it's a northern fishery. Um, it's special. It's special because of the grass and the habitat. The north end is a vast grass flat that is critical to spawning habitat. The entire life cycle of the bass in that lake for half the lake, anyways, revolves around that north end. It's the same in the south end. I don't go down there much, but I got to imagine it's the same. And what is going on is they discovered hydrilla in the lake. I don't even know the exact year. It was actually way back in the early 2000s, I believe. And back when Schumer was in, politics, and they started some hydrilla treatments, and it's carried on, and it's really hitting a big peak right now, where they are not
I think it was
spraying. That is,
2011. Sorry to
yep,
cut you off. I
they
think it was
are.
2011.
That's okay. So they are not spraying. That's a misconception. They are putting pellets in the lake. That kills the hydrilla, and from what we can tell, it's killing everything else. They deny that it kills everything else, but they're taking out vast areas of critical summertime habitat right now. It's drastically reducing the amount of fishable, or habitat that the bass live in. So it's congregating them. It's making them easier to catch, which is super fun right now. That's why you're seeing these pictures of guys posting 30 pounds and 12 pounders all the time and whatever. The biggest problem is this area of treatment and the way the hydrilla is moving down the lake is it's getting unbelievably close to the north end. I'm going to refer to the north end as the first 5, maybe even 7 miles of the lake without looking at a map. Basically, Union Springs, Canoga, and north, Red Jacket and north. And if the hydrilla is found in those areas, which luckily, knock on wood, it has not been yet, then they will modify their hydrilla management plan and begin to treat those areas. And in our opinion, as a bunch of anglers that are not scientists, but we're pretty in tune with life cycles of bass, that will be drastic and critical to the fishery we have right now, where that spawning habitat, that habitat for the fry, the bass there, the largemouth. I'm going to let a little juice here. They spawn on the grass. Okay, they don't make traditional beds. They spawn on the grass. And if that's gone, we got a problem. If that's gone for the protection of their fry, we got a problem. If that's gone for the habitat for the bluegill and the perch, we got a problem. And we're getting really, really close to that. They're within a couple of miles of it now, and they have all gas and no brakes as far as wanting to eradicate this stuff. We have a group that everybody that watches this, please follow on Facebook. It's called Cayuga Anglers for Poison Free Lakes. Please go on that page and like it and share it and get the word out. That is where our small group of local guys has started to spread the message and awareness. And we have gained traction with the New York State DEC, the Corps of Engineers, the Watershed Network. They're all communicating with us and me specifically very openly and well. They are trying to do a job, which is eradicate an invasive species, and that's what they're focused on. They're not fisheries biologists. They're not anything else. They're only trying to do one thing. And we're trying to make them aware of what that one thing could cause from a different standpoint. And that's destroying a fishery that I was just at the St. Lawrence River and they had it ranked the #1 lake in the country. I'm going to tell you right now, no way. It's Cayuga Lake is 50 times better than the St. Lawrence River. And we're at risk of losing it here if things keep going the way they're going.
Yeah. For people tuning in, I put the Facebook group in the comments, but I'll also, for people watching after the fact, I'll put it in the show notes too. So you guys can go right down and click on that link, head over there. Like Casey said, definitely encourage you to do so. I appreciate hitting on the fact of spraying, because that was one of the things that I learned too. Is, I was convinced that they were just going and spraying anywhere they please, just trying to get rid of everything and anything. But yeah, it's the pellets that they're using, and that was the one thing. The biggest thing I was always curious about is if they understood how that wind-driven current worked, where it's how do those pellets, actually move and things like that.
So that's the first thing we kind of brought up to them was, listen, what we're seeing as a group of anglers is yes, they're treating the grass. We're going to call it spraying just because it's easy, but it's spreading pellets.
Yep.
So they're treating the hydrilla in areas that they publicly tell you. Okay, it's not hidden. There's hydrilla management plans on the state website, on the Watershed Network. They're very readily available. We post them, me and John Lorenzo, put them on our Facebook page. Guys can go on there and read it. And they stick to those areas very closely from what we've seen. I get a lot of people who get on the lake and text me pictures and videos. They're out here spraying. They're out here spraying. Where are they? Send me a waypoint. I want to know. And it's always been within the areas that they say. That's not the problem. But what we're seeing is other areas of the lake are changing. And the initial concern was that wind current, and there is natural current in that lake too, on a lot of it. That is moving the pellets and the treatments and whatever the pesticide up and down the lake, and they're denying it. Bailey and I had a phone call a couple weeks ago with some conservation directors from MLF and Bass, and both of them said, yes, it is possible, but the areas you're talking about are probably too big and too vast and too far for that to be the case. So what we are discovering is there is potentially something else going on in the entire ecosystem that just happens to be coincidental timing with these treatments. We don't know what it is. It could be farm runoff. Okay, this is a heart of wine country. There's wineries everywhere. Mm-hmm. They're putting up wineries everywhere. They're building houses everywhere. We're losing a ton of natural barrier, natural filtration. They're obviously spraying a ton of pesticides and whatever crap they spray on their, grapes and plants, whatever. There's a lot of other stuff. We are having some crazy winters here. The lake is not freezing anymore. You'd think that'd lead to more grass, but it might be the opposite. I don't know. I'm not a biologist. So we're seeing a lot of stuff go on. They are very interested in it as well. And we have taken them out on the water in boats and shown them on live sonar and with aqua views and every other thing. Hey, here's what's going on. And I've taken them right to areas that are just plumb loaded with fish because they got nowhere else to go, and shown them like, hey, make one cast right there. You're going to catch one. This is how easy it is. This is why we're worried. They're concerned. It's not their job, though. We got to remember that. Their job is to eradicate the hydrilla.
Yep.
Now, we're bringing awareness to them, and they're understanding that there's something else going on. They don't know what it is either. Okay, they don't believe it's their product. I don't know. I hope it's not. I don't know. From what I've learned, I honestly don't think it is. The problem is, in order to figure out what else is going on, why is the grass in the north end thin? Why is the rest of the lake not producing grass like it used to? Why is it different grass than it used to be? In order to find those things out, they need to research. And in a governmental agency like that, in order to do research, they need what? Money.
Yep. And
they don't have it. They should. It's New York State, and we pay a ridiculous amount of taxes. That's another conversation. That'll be worse than the forward-facing sonar rabbit hole. but they don't have funding to figure these things out. They're interested in it, but they don't have funding. And the plan right now is just status quo. It's keep going out, it's keep serving, it's keep trying to find hydrilla. That's the thing. They are trying to find it. People around the lake, homeowners that have them geared right up, trying to find it. There is plants in that lake, Eladia and other stuff that look exactly like hydrilla. I have a hard time distinguishing. Some of their people have a hard time distinguishing. So if stuff gets reported and they go out there and survey, and if there's one strand, treat it. No other option. Treat it. And that's the scary part here. Is it's just status quo, treat it, don't take anything else into consideration.
I really wish, and granted, I'll specify, like, I'm not qualified, I think, from a biologist standpoint. This is why we pulled in Stephen Barden and Gene from Bass to speak with this. But I wish they would just take a break for a year or two on the whole pellet thing and just see what the lake does, and take that money and put that back into the research aspect and just see what happens, see what Mother Nature does with the lake. You might be able to better evaluate if from the runoff. I feel like it's not a hard way to cross reduce, if you will, like figure out where those specific farms are, figure out where the creeks lead to, and test those, because you're going to be able to pick up if there's chemicals in that stream or not. But I feel like the process of they're doing it could be refined. I feel like it's overcomplicated right now when it doesn't need to be. I feel like they're just doing something to do something right now when we could just leave it and just see what happens with it. I don't know. I could be wrong there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And I said that too. The downside, we kind of jumped way ahead. The downside for anybody who doesn't know how this works, their concern of the hydrilla is due to a large, shallow area in the lake. The hydrilla will grow out to 20 or 25 feet and just choke out the native grass, make it impossible to boat and recreate, and make a mess out of it. I understand that. We've seen lakes like Toho and Kissimmee, they get like that, but they're in Florida and they have 12 months of growing season. We do not have that in New York State. We have 2, maybe for hydrilla, maybe 3 at the most. I agree. That was one thing I said, is just let it go and see what happens. Now, do I want to find out and see it if they're right?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So I want to ask for that, I'm a little hesitant, because if they're right and it does go clear across that north end, that would make a disaster. I just very highly doubt that would be the case. Milfoil would probably do it before that. The pondweed that's in there that's native basically already does do it. So I don't think hydrilla is going to be any different, especially because from my experience fishing down south, hydrilla needs a little bit warmer water temperature to grow than some of these native grasses that we have here need.
Yeah. Well, I find it ironic too that this is the reason for getting rid of the hydrilla is mostly for the boating. Because I think us anglers, like, if we see hydrilla, I mean, usually it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But the whole north end, that whole string grass crap, like, that doesn't make it easy for boating either, and it's carpeted the whole thing.
No, it's terrible. It's hard to fish too on top of it. And they go out there with weed choppers and chop that stuff down too. So there's a lot, there's so many layers of this onion too. There is also people advocating to just kill all the grass. There's one specific guy that gets on our group and he just wants everything wiped out just so he can have a swimming pool in his backyard that when he lives on the lake, he thinks the place should be a swimming pool. It's not what it is. And it's only going to make it worse because there's a lot of runoff. There's a lot of creeks, especially in that north end, and it gets very muddy when we have rain, and that will not make it a swimming pool. That will make it dirtier. That's just an uneducated guy going off.
Not to mention all the chemicals that are getting put in the water by these pellets, and when they spray the grass, like it just.
So, that's the next thing is the product they're using. I should have brought my notes in here. I meant to do it and I forgot them, but it's called a Floridone something Sonar HC4. It's a heavy copper based product and it's very bad. especially in the levels they're putting it in. Some people watching might have heard of what went on in Lake Bomoseen in Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
Jody White was a big part of that, and those guys. And the Vermont DNR looked at it. They wanted to apply the same stuff. And a very, I think it's probably safe to say, a very liberal government up there that would be on the forefront of eradicating invasives, which in their case was milfoil, pulled the brakes back and didn't do it because of how harmful the sonar was, and they wanted more information and research. And we're dumping it in Cayuga by the ton. Swimming areas, cottage areas. A guy sent me a video a couple weeks ago. They ran right up on a guy swimming up. It's on our Facebook page. The guy was swimming on the beach or swimming at his cottage, right up within 20, 30 feet of him, putting poison in the water. So it's just a little mind blowing why they are so dead set to get rid of this stuff. I've lived on this lake wise for my entire adult lifehood. I've never seen a blade of hydrilla in there that I could say 100% was hydrilla. I've never pulled up a clump of it, with a crankbait or a worm or whatever, a drop shot, and said, "Oh man, I just found a hydrilla bed. Like, this is awesome. They're going to be loaded." I've never seen that. When I went out with them last year, they took me right to a spot that was known to have hydrilla, and they were treating it actively, and it was there presently, supposedly. We dropped an AquaView camera down. We dropped grass rakes down, and I didn't see crap. They didn't see crap. Couple of sprigs that maybe it's Eladia, maybe it's hydrilla. We don't know. AquaView, the only way to find out is dive down there and figure it out. And they do that. They send divers down there and survey. So to me, that's the maddening part. It is not creating a hazard currently. If we see it, then fine. Do what you're going to do, I guess, and ruin the place. But it's not in that state right now. Not even close.
Yep. Yeah, completely agreed. And it just, every time it brings me back to the fact of, it seems like there's so many things going on that are being forced that we need to just go back to square one here and just let Mother Nature do its thing. And then she's going to show you the signs of what's happening. It's just where there's too much, I think, interference right now to really get a clear picture of what's happening with the lake. Yeah, because it could be one of those things where it's simply a lake cycle, obviously, but I think there's some interjection in there from the pellets, but or whether that's runoff from a winery, but we won't know because we're too busy interfering. And again, that's not a qualified answer, but that's just, I guess, personal opinion. But
yeah, I've seen this lake go through all different changes. Bailey, you were too young to remember this or even have seen this, but that north end used to be milfoil from one side to the other. Like the most beautiful stuff you could flip and punch. And, they go out there and cut some boat lanes in it and the weed. I remember when I was a kid, the weed choppers would come out. And back then, the boats and propellers were 100 times worse, and we still managed to get around and enjoy the lake, and everybody had a good time. And that, I don't even know where that went away or how that went away, but it's gone. There was some eelgrass for a little while. Now there's some pondweed. We went through a big phase where there's a lot of coontail. That's basically just vaporized at this point. Who knows where that went? So it goes through these cycles. Like it's not. I would be so unbelievably surprised if it turned into a carpet of hydrilla that I just don't see it being likely.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Is there anything on that topic that some of the folks need to know, if there's anybody from the state or the angling community before we sign off here?
Yeah, so kind of the step we're at here is trying to get a little more formalized and a little more leverage. And like I said earlier, we have been in good active communication with the Watershed Network. And the Watershed Network is willing to give us a seat at the table to voice our opinion on all these things. And it's very important that we do that when the state comes up with their management plan for 2025, because it's right now scheduled to go to 2026. And what they do every year is they present a new plan to the Watershed Network of, hey, we're going to continue to treat the areas we've treated before, or we found more and we need to adapt and do this. Or, hey, maybe we get lucky in some areas haven't shown any for a few years, we're not going to treat them. And what we need to do is find a good leader for our group. a good representative, and some good people who can devote some time. I fish a lot of tournaments. I got a kid playing youth hockey, and I got a full-time job that's very critical to my income. I cannot do that. John Lorenzo is the person who started all this and is responsible for why I'm even here talking about it today. He is in the same boat. He's a busy man that has a lot of other things going on. And although we care greatly about the lake, time is there's only so much of it. So we're trying to find someone who can really help head this up, be our representative, get some people to join in the Watershed Network and get a group who can sit at that table for their meetings and say, you know, listen, your hydrilla management plan, we understand you're going to go into Union Springs from an angling standpoint. This is what will probably happen. Someone who needs to get fisheries biologist people involved. We just need some more people here. We need to come across someone with a legal background. That's why you and I talked about having this conversation tonight, was hopefully that person is in the audience or someone in the audience knows someone and can put them in touch with me or you or our group and get this thing a little more leverage than we currently have. Right now, we're just some local bass fishermen and trying to make a little bit of noise, but we're probably not going about it the best way we can.